Good morning. We still have people coming in, but we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 10:01. We have a lot of content to go over, so I want to make sure that we take plenty of time to answer your questions. So this morning, we appreciate you coming to our quarterly meeting. So we're going to be discussing finances, and then we'll go into hurricane preparedness. Dr. Beverly Booth and I will both be doing the presentation today. So we appreciate you being here, and we'll answer all your questions at the end. So you noticed a lot of the trucks out today. We're doing some tree trimming and tree removal. So if you'll bear with us while we do that, we appreciate that as well. And then today, of course, I'm missing my daughter. She is a missionary this morning down in South America. She left for Costa Rica on Saturday with a mission crew of teenagers. The teenagers way outnumbered the adults. So we really hope that works out well for everybody. They'll be staying in the rainforest in huts and then working during the day, cleaning toilets and washing dishes and taking care of the indigenous people in that region. So anyway, let's go ahead and open in prayer. If we can have our chaplain. Yes, we are. We're going to sing. Following the agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
All righty. Costa Rica, that sounds like fun. The cloud
Maybe
forest.
for the kids, not the adults.
Oh, no. The cloud forest and all, it's beautiful. Let us bow our heads in prayer. Our Lord, who reigns in heaven and on earth, during this season of both exceptionally hot days as well as exceptionally long and hard rains, we remember still to express our gratitude that you continue to provide the resources that we need to live and to thrive. And we promise to do our best not to waste all that you give us. In your name we pray. Amen. And Shannon says I can get in a couple of brief announcements that I hope you remember one of our team members who served us in the bistro named Mr. Ike Hall, who passed away, and I was able to attend his visitation and express our happy memories of him to the family a couple of weeks back up in Havana, Florida. And then this coming Wednesday, our guest speaker in chapel at 10 a.m. in the lower level, Francis Chapel, will be Coach Jamie Shoup of the Florida A&M. They call next generation calls it FAMU baseball team, and also brother of our team member Laura Wiggins. Hope you can join us. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So Miss Patsy has picked out a song for us. Do you want to go ahead and thank you? Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed as the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous flood o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. The rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land, the home of the brave? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. And we'll begin our quarterly meeting. We'll start with discussion of finances. I saw some of you taking pictures, and of course you're welcome to, but we are going to post it on MyWLife. So it'll be there available for you if you want to go back and revisit it, okay? So we have the quarterly finances, but we're also going to add hurricane preparedness. So let's go ahead and get started with our quarterly finances. So the last full quarter of finances we have posted and ready, available for you, are January through April. So this is the last part of fiscal year 23 that we're looking at. So you may be thinking quarterly as in a different quarter, like October, December. Our fiscal year begins April 1. So that's going to be one of the reasons why this is what you're looking at here. Hold on. January to April. So during that quarter in time, our revenues exceeded 8.5 million. However, you can see our expenses were pretty high as well at 8.2. Being a service industry, of course, the lion's share of our expenses are going to be in our wages and benefits category. So you can see here the greatest variation is in these two numbers here. We have controllable and non-controllable expenses, which we'll be covering a little bit later on. But our total expenses, thankfully, did not exceed our revenues, only by about $281,000. So many of you may or may not know where our revenues come from, so we wanted to share part of that with you today. So our revenues are driven by these departments: home health or companion care fees. I think you see some of our companion care staff and sitters, as well as assisted living monthly charges and independent living monthly charges. A great source of our revenue, of course, is our nursing care services. In nursing care, our revenue comes from Medicare, which is a pretty high payer source, Medicaid as well. We have a great number of people who privately pay room and board in our health center. And then our biggest HMO, our biggest managed care provider, is Capital Health Plan, which I know many of you are Capital Health Plan members. So we are a contract provider with Capital Health Plan. And we also have some ancillary charges here as well. Now, on some of the other departments, we have special projects through our maintenance staff, as well as housekeeping, our guest rooms and so forth, and therapy services. You're aware that we have both inpatient and outpatient therapy. Under dining services, we do get revenue from catering charges when you throw those extra parties in the pool house and other places like that, extra meals and guest meals. But on the expenses side, like I said, wages is going to be our biggest expense. We're at about 360 team members right now. Prior to COVID, we were about 395, and then we dropped down into about the 200s, 295 during COVID, and we've worked very hard to bring our staff, all of our departments, back to full staffing. And you're aware, we made the announcements that we moved anybody who was not at $15 an hour, we moved them up to $15 an hour. We did not delay. We did that across all the communities. And that probably fell predominantly to our clinical staff. That's probably where the biggest wage increases went for us. So with the increased wages, of course, our benefits are right at about 30%. A lot of that is life insurance, health insurance, our health plans. Our provider for our team members is CHP, like many of you. They're a great HMO in the area, and they give really good service. We had over 80 team members. We mentioned this in a previous resident council meeting, over 80 of just our team members that had wage increases up to $15 an hour. So some of the controllable expenses that we have include payroll, overtime. Overtime should be a controllable expense. We don't schedule overtime. We allow for it as needed. Contract labor. Westminster Oaks is one of the few communities that you'll hear about that has no contract labor in our health center. And with no contract labor, bringing in our own folks, we believe that truly improves quality of care and the stability of the building to deliver good care to our short-term and long-term people. Consultants, so that's a controllable expense as well for us. So if we need to have more consultants here, then that means that we need assistance. The best thing that we can do is run a sound operation here on our campus. There's also non-payroll expenses that we have control over. Office supplies is probably the biggest one. Not everybody needs a whole box of pens in their desk drawer, utilization of paper, things like that. And repairs of minor equipment. We treat our equipment right. We shouldn't have to replace it quite as often. Prescription drug costs. Those, as we bring people into our health center, some people come with lower, some people come with higher prescriptions, but our pharmacy does negotiate contracts with our manufacturers. We also have non-controllable expenses from the operations side, so convalescent days. So if we have 5 people that need to come to the health center or 10 people that need to come to the health center, we want to make sure that we provide care and services for them and we have a bed available for them. So convalescent days is not something that we control. We can anticipate, we can budget for it, but we don't control it. Lab and x-ray charges, those are things that we don't control, as well as medical supplies, oxygen use, things like that. Raw food prices, we do negotiate with our US food and other vendors, but there's still a range, and you know from going to the grocery store like everybody else how the raw food prices have gone up. Sequestered percentages from our HMO, so if we have a HMO contract recipient in our health center, we may charge $100. The HMO may say, we only pay you $60, we keep back $40. And that's part of the contract that we have with them. So there's a sequestered amount that the HMO will keep back. Utilities, things like that. Those are not something within the control of Westminster Oaks, electricity, water, sewer, so forth. Benevolent assistance. This is a wonderful, wonderful option for those who are contract residents that they have at their disposal. So if somebody qualifies for benevolent assistance, obviously we provide that benevolent assistance for them. The price of licenses, we have many licenses at Westminster Oaks. Health and life insurance for our team members, we negotiate those prices with our providers, and we try to negotiate the best package possible. We're very blessed in Tallahassee that we have a great HMO in CHP. And then there are other non-controllable expenses like insurance, taxes, and cable. Workman's comp reserves, if we have open cases that we want to close, that's a non-controllable expense. So in summary, we're blessed that our revenues exceeded our expenses. That's just good business. I think you would agree. Our wages and benefits were higher because we did such a great job of filling team member positions. It was one of our initiatives this year to focus on getting people hired and retaining our good team members. And so we worked very hard to get the wages and benefit package for them and fill those positions, especially in the health center. So the health center has been without any agency contract temporary staff since September, which is a huge accomplishment for our team. So I have to congratulate Vicki and Jeff and the team members. The uncontrollable expenses, as we talked about, many of those are related to occupancy. We were blessed to be able to improve and increase the occupancy in our health center, have lots of people living there coming in short-term for rehab, benefiting from our therapy and nursing services. And then to let you know, the projections for this year are very, very favorable. Because we've filled so many positions, we have our own full-time and part-time staff. Our department managers are very diligent about how they spend our residents' money. They use spend downs, they monitor carefully how they spend your money. And all of us working to be very good stewards of your dollars. Now I'll try to answer any questions that you have. So Dakota and Chris, we have a question over here. And while we're waiting on that question, I just wanted to recognize Jim Pulaski is our Senior Vice President of Operations. This is Jim here. Thank you. Pageant wave, we practiced, yes. And then Scott Cairns is in the back. He is our Regional Vice President for Central and North. Thank you. Thank you both for being here. And if I can't answer the question, guess what? I'm passing the mic to you. Hello, I'll try to answer your question.
Okay, you said that with food, insurance, et cetera, all these things were well negotiated, good prices and all. Does that mean Tallahassee is negotiating? Or does that mean Orlando is negotiating for us up here?
So with US Food, that is a corporate contract. However, we do use many local vendors. For example, Southern Seafood gives us our fish straight from the Gulf. And so it is a combination of vendors. Our primary source, of course, is US Food. Yes, ma'am.
Is that the same for medication?
So Westminster Pharmacy negotiates with manufacturers to get the best price on medication. We want to be competitive for everybody, not only health center, but any of our independent living residents who want to utilize Westminster Pharmacy services. They want to know they're getting the best price.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. If there aren't any other, oh, another question? Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning. At some point in a future meeting, when maybe you're a little more comfortable with doing this, I think it would be very much to your advantage to attempt to discuss the subject of our monthly fees, how those are put together, what is involved, what happens to our money, how much of it stays here, how much of it goes somewhere else. And I think you would discover that rather than anybody being shocked or upset, they'd be very glad to hear and maybe be happier. So if you would give that some thought, this was actually not a question, but it is a question in that sense. Think about a time in the future when that might happen.
Thank you. Be glad to. Anybody else? Okay. We'll move on into hurricane preparedness. Just to let you know, Dr. Beverly Booth and I will be doing a presentation today, and then Casanova Nurse will be here on Wednesday, the 12th at 10 a.m., and he will be discussing local hurricane preparedness here in Leon County. All right. So I'm going to go first, and then I'll hand the microphone off to Beverly Booth, and she will go after me. So Westminster Communities of Florida does annual preparation and reviews our emergency preparedness procedure. We actually started in March of this year. We look at all hazard planning as part of our emergency preparedness, not just hurricanes, but we look at tornadoes, power out, different things like that that can happen to the community. We also look at transfer agreements, both within our sister communities as well as externally, so that if our sister communities are tied up, we have other places to take our residents. We participate in local emergency planning coalitions. So this year we did participate in the Leon County Healthcare Coalition tabletop exercise. And we also confirm what our evacuation status is and our flood zone status is. And what you'll find is Westminster Oaks is beautifully positioned because we are not in a flood zone and we are not in an evacuation zone. So we're very blessed. We also look at our chain of command. If I'm not available, who steps up to take control of communicating here on the campus. And we have team assignments. I think I've mentioned this before. We have teams A, B, and C. Our team members, when they are hired with us, have to sign up for one of those teams. Team A is in preparation for the storm, before the storm. Team B stays here during the storm, and Team C provides relief for those who've been working during the storm. We also make sure that we have space available for our team members. We have people that rest in between shifts, and so we use our available vacant units. We also have over 100 air mattresses that we keep here in preparation for that. And staff are given badges. This is mine, the green one. And we also have letters, so that if there are roads closed, that we can share this information with whoever the governing authority, the police or sheriff's department, and let them know that we are essential staff and that we are needed and that we need to get through, or they need to give us directions on how to get through so that we can do our jobs. The other thing that we go over, and all the properties do this and we share this among each other, is our supplies and materials so that we can support each other. And how our equipment is working. We top off our generators. We give account of our stair climbers, portable generators, portable air conditioning units. One of the interesting facts among us is that when a previous storm, I believe it was Hermine, came through, the people that came to our aid was Westminster Gardens. So the fact that we are here to help each other is a great benefit, because we had towers down and they were able to bring over air conditioning, portable air conditioning units to us. So we assist each other. We review our emergency plan, update our emergency plan, and this is yet another reason why we want you to participate in wellness checks. It is not to be intrusive, but it is to know and be prepared for you and for your needs, especially if we need to provide a room for you in the health center, you need oxygen, other equipment. And we review, of course, our responsibilities. We're currently updating Call 'em All. We updated quite a few of our numbers in the last few weeks. Lynn is here in the back, and if you need to provide another phone number for her, another cell phone or landline, we want to make sure that we capture all that data so that we can do a Call 'em All out to you and communicate with you. We want to provide uninterrupted services, especially to our health center and assisted living. But you'll notice through previous storms, those of you who've been here, we've also provided meals for you as well. We have the benefit of having gas in our kitchen so that we can continue to cook and make meals for you. We also keep meals on hand. We also have MREs supplied for us as well. And we support each other and we communicate with each other. It's one of the reasons why we receive a satellite phone in advance of a storm, so that if other communication goes out, that we are able to communicate with those at our home office. We work to maintain essential services, of course, and to monitor the storm and its impact. We monitor our supplies and materials as they're used. We also have vendors that we have contract to come and top off generators right after a storm. So they come before and after storms to make sure that our generators are working properly. We work to communicate with team members, and we also communicate with residents thanks to block captains. Block captains do a great service for their neighbors by communicating and talking with them and keeping them updated as well. We communicate with our home office team, and then we have typically Wes from our home office puts up a banner on the website so that your families, if they're checking on the status of Westminster Oaks, can read that banner and know what's going on. We coordinate with government agencies through our ESS, our emergency services website, and we update them throughout the storm as well. And we typically can do that on our phones. Looking to recover, of course, we assess the status of our residents. One of the things we did during Hermine is we brought all the department heads in and gave them 10, 12 names each and deployed them out to all the neighborhoods to go and check on you and make sure you were doing okay, and if there was something you needed that we could assist immediately. Of course, we review our physical plant. and we work to learn from each instance that we have. So for example, 5-10 years ago, we didn't have the PBX system on generator. So thanks to a named storm, we put that on generator. So as we go through these experiences, we learn and figure out what we need to do next to make sure that we can communicate and be there to support you. And of course, we report to our Agency for Healthcare. We do after-action assessments, recommendations, and we review team assignments because we want to return to normal as quickly as possible for you. So we're looking at potentially 14 named storms, and potentially 3 of them being major hurricanes. However, when you look here on the map, this is Westminster Oaks. So you see us compared to all of our sister communities. I don't know if you can see all these areas that are circled here, and look at the number of hurricane strikes over the years. Look at us. We're in a great situation. So it's a good time, of course, to learn our hurricane classifications and also to update your seasonal vocabulary if you don't recall what's the difference between a warning and a watch. And then to understand what we're able to do at the onset of a hurricane. We're probably not going to be switching out your light bulbs, okay? So if there some routine or minor things, we're probably not going to be running to do that. We're going to be working to bat down the hatches and make sure that the infrastructure is safe and ready for the storm. And we'll use every means of communication available to us, from call-em-alls to emails, and if we can do cubby stuffs, we'll do that as well. So when a warning is issued, please be listening, be aware, check with your neighbors, your block captain, go ahead and close your blinds, remove things from your window seals, place your towels in key places, and anything that would become a projectile. We don't want your lawn chair floating around the campus. And then evacuation. Even though we're not in evacuation zone, that probably still means you may not have creature comforts that you might have at a friend's or relative's place that's not being affected by the storm. So it's worth contemplating if you want to do that. Now's the time, of course, to do that. So, can we manage on our own? Absolutely. But if there's a place you'd be more comfortable, please start reaching out and talking about that, thinking about that. And then don't wait, because you don't want to be sitting in traffic on I-10 or I-75 for hours at a time, potentially running out of gas. You want to leave earlier rather than later. And make sure you have your list of things that you need. And of course, close your windows, deal with frozen food, valuables, and tell your block captain. We still have the usual and customary let reception know if you're leaving, but please tell your block captain if you're in a hurry to go. And of course, if you have a pet, probably the best thing is to board that pet where that pet has been most comfortable with your veterinarian, but we do have a contract with a veterinarian service. And we have put that contract to the test several times, and she has always come through for us, Dr. Elizabeth Blount. And if you don't know where these things are, now's the time to go and find them, from vaccination papers to your carriage and cage, toys, treats, stuff like that. So, Dr. Beverly Booth, come on up. You practice with this? All righty. Get the stuff off of here for you.
Oh, this is nice. Oh, yeah. Let's get a coffee. Good morning, everyone. Nice to be here. I'm going to talk to you from a different aspect, from the resident aspect up rather than the organizational aspect down, and hope we meet in the middle. There will be some overlap because we do overlap, don't we? Westminster provides us with a lot of services. Before I get into that, though, I wanted to remind us of a fabulous website, which is leonready.com. And there are two things especially that are helpful. One is the fact that the disaster survival guide is there, and that will give you a lot of details. Shannon's gone over some of them about how to prepare for a hurricane. I'm not going to go into those details. It's readily available in several places. In addition, just to let you know that what I'm talking about today is also available on just 2 sheets on MyWLife. And where it will be, both of these, the disaster survival guide is also there. So you don't have to go online particularly. You can just go to MyWLife under emergency preparedness. The first 2 items, one is the survival guide, and this will give you all sorts of information on how to prepare. And the second is basically a summary of what I'm saying today. In terms of preparing just in general for a hurricane, again, Shannon's going over some of it. The important thing is to make a plan. Gather your supplies. Again, a long list is available. Most of us have lived here, certainly in Florida, for quite a while and are familiar with this. Remember your pet. Shannon's brought that up very well. Think about a safe room in your apartment or house where you would settle down if there's a very bad windstorm, if there's a tornado, so that, and have supplies there. Have water, a little bit of food. If it's a bathroom floor, have a blanket and pillow, and your phone, and that sort of thing, batteries, and your flashlight. And then again, consider whether you want to evacuate or not. But what I'm going to concentrate on today is what makes us as individuals who are a bit aging more vulnerable to a hurricane. What makes us, particular characteristics that make us more vulnerable. One is if we require a power-driven medical device, such as oxygen or CPAP critically every night, even if we're on a motorized wheelchair. We need to think about that because the biggest problem that we're going to have during a hurricane is power outage. Secondly, if we have a caregiver. Again, thirdly, most of us are becoming more and more cognitively challenged as we age. We are also mobility challenged. So these are big factors during a hurricane when our circumstances will be different. Our routines will have to be different. And this takes more and more getting used to as we age, these changes. Some things we don't think about are do we use email? If we don't use email, it is our responsibility as residents to find a way that allows us to know what Westminster Oaks is trying to tell us. Westminster Oaks can't go knocking on everybody's door, especially during an emergency, to say this, that, or the other thing with respect to what's happening during an emergency. So it is our responsibility as residents, if we don't have email, if we can't use our cell phone maximally in terms of messaging and tech and voicemails, that's our responsibility. And the easiest way to do that is to contact a neighbor who is more facile in these ways and make sure that they let you know about important notifications. And lastly, as was mentioned, if you have a pet, that's a complication. So I just want to go through each one of these areas in a little more detail. If we're dependent on power, well, that means we need to make sure that whatever our device is that we're dependent on has battery backup, and then one step backwards, has a generator or some way to charge that battery. Again, in a prolonged power outage, this is going to be critical. We remember that in village homes, you can have a generator, but in apartments you can't have a gas-driven generator. Chasen and Azalea have outlets in a common area, and as I understand, but it hasn't been confirmed, and you may let me know, that some of the other plugs in the public area are also wired to the generator, although not delineated as such. You can check that out during the power outages, of which we have frequent ones in the nice afternoon, no problem. Take your cell phone charger and go around to these common plugs and see if they still work when there's no power. That means they're attached to the generator. In that case, label that plug, and therefore your whole community would have more plugs to use. In Oak South and in Canopy, each unit has an outlet. What you have to know, though, is what is the maximum number of amps for that outlet, and it's written on the outlet. And you can charge mostly everything, and you can have your light and even your fan and stuff. Try not to use hair dryers, coffee makers. These things will probably exceed the number of amps on the plug. And I actually, not being an electrician, don't know what happens, but I don't think there's an explosion or anything. I don't know what happens. I don't know if it blows a fuse, but don't exceed it. So plan ahead. Already I said that generators are not allowed in the apartments that are gas generated or propane generated. Elevators in each building, there is an elevator that is attached to the generator, but try not to use it. It uses a huge amount of power. So only use it in an emergency. Just gallop down the stairs otherwise, right? Okay. And as I mentioned, don't exceed the outlet capacity. Now, a big thing is the caretaker. You need to look at yourself. Okay, number one, is the caretaker going to still come to you on during a hurricane? I don't know what the statistics are, but it's unlikely that, or it's certainly possible that a caretaker will not make it, even if they want to, or come because they don't want to. They have their own family to take care of. So check with your caretaker. Is your caretaker able to come? Number two, what does a caretaker do for you? For some of us, a caretaker comes once a week and does our laundry and empties our dishwasher and does the odd thing that we want them to do. You can probably do without a caretaker during a hurricane if that's the case. On the other hand, for others of us, caretaker is critical to our being able to function in our unit, in our living quarters. And if that's the case, you really have to seriously consider whether you're able to do without a caretaker during a hurricane, which may be several days of not having a caretaker. And if that's the case, you have to make plans ahead of time. So for all of us who are either cognitively, mobility challenged, have a caretaker, or for whatever other reasons, we have some opportunities, options, one of which is we can stay with family or friends. Some of us, I won't even say many of us, I don't really know, have close relatives in the area. I used to. That's why I moved here. She moved away. So many of us are in those circumstances. And, you know, and do they have a generator? Are they on one floor? Are you able to stay with them? But that may be a very nice option instead of staying here, especially if you have these other vulnerabilities that I'm calling that make it harder to stay on your own. So think about staying with friends or relatives who live locally. Another possibility, as was mentioned, is we can stay here in the McGuire Center. I don't know how many of you saw it being set up when we had evacuees from other CCRCs here. It's not a picnic. It's sort of like a picnic. It's sort of like camping out. But, you know, there's a bed every 3 or 4 feet, and it's a blow-up mattress, and that's what you're provided with. Everything else is your own responsibility, including meals and everything. So, but think about it. during especially a prolonged power outage. Another possibility, as was mentioned, was the health center. Now, it's very important if you are thinking about the health center, and I would, if I had a caretaker and I were dependent on a caretaker, ahead of time, you work with the Health Resource Center because you need your doctor's orders to sign an order that gets you into the health center. And you can stay there for a few days. You know, that'd be nice. Food, oxygen, and other things. So think about that strongly. We don't use email, as I mentioned. I noticed during the Call 'em All test sort of thing that we had last week, a lot of people who have cell phones even don't know how to access their texts because they don't message. They may not know how to access their voicemail. So if they missed a voice message from Shannon and it goes to voicemail, they won't know how to access their voicemail. Learn to do that. And if not, again, you need a neighbor and you need to identify the neighbor. The neighbor does not need to identify you. You need to, as an independent resident, need to identify the neighbor who will keep you informed. Very, very important. The other thing is we need to ensure, as Shannon mentioned, that we're on the Lynn's email list and also the Call 'em All list. And you can do that by submitting your contact data to Lynn, who I think has begun to speak to me again since I made that suggestion last week. She's been rather inundated. But anyway, that's very, very important to do. I know some of us don't want people to know our email and all that sort of thing. Well, it goes there. It's a confidential list, so it's not that list gets out when you ask her to put you on the Call 'em All list. But it gives you an opportunity to get the voicemails from Shannon and the texts that go out during an emergency. The other thing is to stay tuned to the local emergencies that are going on, that are, you know, the TV and radio, and WFSU does a good job of that. During a tornado, especially if you go to a local TV station, you know, the ones under 12 and 10 and, you know, W whatever, then they have little maps in the lower right-hand corner that gives you an idea, especially during tornado watches, tornado warnings, where the tornado is going. So it's very helpful to look at a local television station for that reason. So again, if we have a pet, Shannon went over the list. We need to make sure we have the supplies for them, and we need to be able to make sure we have a plan for them. I wanted to speak briefly about the Communications Committee, the Emergency Communications Committee, which I am the coordinator for. It's for communications only. So when you have other complaints about this, that, or the other thing, go to the Maintenance and Safety Committee. And the purpose is to provide a resident on the spot. In other words, there is a block captain for each neighborhood, each apartment floor, and that person has access to a radio. We look really super duper with our little radios. But this they will radio me, and then I can radio Shannon or walk over. I live in Canopy Oak, so it's easy for me to get there. Plus, during a hurricane, I'll be meeting with Shannon regularly. So if there is an emergency, remember even if our phone system is working, security and maintenance and Shannon are going to be overwhelmed with phone calls. Just trying to get the job done, as well as us trying to call her. So don't. Instead, if you have an emergency during a medical emergency, obviously you try to call 911, but if you have an emergency, you know, a tree falls on your house or whatever, and you think it might be good for Westminster to know, then let your block captain know. Now, can everybody who knows who their block captain is, can you raise your hand, please? Very good. I'm impressed. Most of you know who your block captain is. Some of you do not. It's important for you as independent residents to find out who your block captain is. We have to take responsibility as independent residents. So, if you have an emergency situation during a community-wide emergency, it's not every time, oh dear, I blew a fuse, don't call your block captain. Okay? This is during a community-wide emergency. That's when you should go through the block captain system. So, just to review how Westminster Oaks communicates with us, number one, it's through an email blast. And we already know that. We're very familiar with that. I was struck by how few email addresses seem to be originally on this system, which means there are a lot of you who aren't. And I know, again, we covet our email address and think it's going to be shared with everybody under the sun. It's very important for Lynn to have that email address. So please, please share it with her. And then the next step up will be through the automated message system, Call 'em All, which, anyway, Call 'em All. And that is set up by administration to be able to text us and to give us mass voice messages from administration during an emergency. If these fail, especially during a power outage, or again, during a community-wide emergency when those systems will be overwhelmed, then it's important to, then we have the fallback of the block captain system, as I described. So, just to review, how can we, as Westminster residents, help Westminster Oaks help us? And there are basically three areas. One is prepare, one is inform, and two is to stay and be informed. And so, prepare ahead of time. Sign up for the Citizens app. I'm sure if those of you who have been signed up have been getting, these warnings all along these storms we're having. Ensure that we're on the email list and the Call 'em All list, and know who our block captain is. So that is how we have to prepare. Make a plan, very important. Make the necessary decisions that are dependent on that plan, and then make arrangements for these decisions. We can't just say, oh, that would be a good idea. We have to make the arrangements that allow our plan to happen. Inform, keep our contact data current with Lynn and with the Health Resource Center. As Shannon mentioned, it's so important for us to let the Health Resource Center know of conditions that make us more vulnerable during a hurricane, so that administration has this information and can respond to it. The other thing, again, as was mentioned, is to let reception know when we are going out of town. This is really important during an emergency, so that administration doesn't have to worry about somebody who isn't here. So please, as we should anyway, at all times, when we're leaving overnight, we need to let reception know. And all you have to do is call. It's not a form you have to fill out. You can just call and give the information over the phone. Stay informed, check your emails frequently, and keep your phone on and charged and near you so that you can receive these messages. I know some of us don't use our cell phone very much. We only take it with us when we go out, this sort of thing. During an emergency, have it nearby all the time and on so that you can receive the information. Keep in touch with your block captain. Again, tune into the local media. And Westminster Communities has a website which is particularly helpful to families who want to check to see what's going on with Westminster and your particular community. So remember, prepare, inform, and stay informed. Thank you.
So we have a question? So Chris, if you'll take the microphone over. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. This question, you or Beverly, it doesn't really matter. So during hurricane season, we may have an emergency medical procedure, say. So if that happens, do we notify, if we're independent living, do we notify Peggy Keys of that, whatever happened, like a neighbor broke her wrist just
Yes.
Thursday? Or do we notify our block captain, or do we notify both?
Yeah, broken wrist, I would say, something like that, we would notify Peggy if possible. But you have a call bell, so you can hit that call bell. If an event happens, you can definitely hit your call bell. If you have something scheduled, please tell Peggy Key. That would be the difference. Yes, ma'am. Other questions? Right down here. And remember, again, all of this will be posted on the website, so you can look back and reflect on it too. Yes, ma'am.
Will we be having another test or a test for the Call-em-all?
Yes, when Lynn is finished getting all the numbers, because she's still getting in numbers, so when that stops, we'll do another test. Lynn
Great.
is right there in the back.
Great.
So since she's here, if you don't have a phone number or email on file, please stop and see her on the way out. Yes, sir. Right here.
Shannon, are we having drills? The team members are having drills about
We
this?
actually have drills monthly, and we have them on alternate shifts as well. Mhm. Other questions?
Shannon, I live in a duplex, and I'm interested in what options I might have for paying for my own backup system if the power goes out. I wonder if you could get together some information for those of us who might be interested.
So you're talking about a generator?
A generator,
Yes.
yes.
There's a generator policy, which Lydia can give you, so you can review that. And then we would put you in contact with Sean Mui for a contractor to discuss
Okay.
location and price.
And Lydia is your assistant?
My executive assistant,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
There is a generator policy. Mhm. And it's very sensitive to neighbors. Yes. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am, over here. And, oh, okay. And over here next. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Remind people that if their voicemail is full, because they never empty it, they need to, clear it out so it's available during an emergency.
That's a great idea. Empty your voicemail. And then we have another right here. Here he is.
I was just wondering, if the power is out and the front gate is closed, will it still open if you need to go in or out?
Yes, it will. They'll probably just set it to open. Yes, ma'am. Right back here.
I'm just wondering what happens with the emergency call system. You know, the button in the bathroom and your button that you can wear.
The status button,
Pardon me?
the Sarah system.
Uh-huh.
We'll do a double check on the Sarah system for you. It should still work.
Well,
But
if
we
there-
will have security check it.
If there's a power outage, I just wondered if it still functions.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
You wanted to go?
Vicki, will you write that down? Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
For 18 years, Westminster Oaks has done the finest comprehensive illustration of what we do in emergencies.
Mhm.
I think this is the most comprehensive that we've had in 18 years. My memory is not as good as it once was, but thank you, Dr. Booth and Shannon, for a wonderfully comprehensive review. We should all feel safer. And one final request, Dr. Booth, I won't tell anybody. Could I have your private number in case I really need to help? I'll call you.
If she sees it's you, she's not going to pick up. You know that, right? Any other questions? Hi.
Yes. I live at Chasen Gardens, and last night we had kind of a chat or a meeting, and this subject came up about our emergency outlets. We only know of one outlet in the whole
lobby.
building. Yes, in the lobby. We have checked, various people have checked the plugs and everything, and it seems like none of them are working. As far as we know, there's one. If
Correct.
is there someone, some kind of blueprint or something out there that would tell us if there are some other outlets?
We can check with Sean on that, but I believe there's only one. And that's where we're talking about putting in a power strip so you can go and charge your phones.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, so
Yes, ma'am.
this lady next to me wants to know if she has no computer, so no way of printing that off of MyWLife or reading it, how does she get a copy?
We can print one for you, ma'am. We'll be glad to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Would you remind me of that? We'll get that to her. Anybody else? Oh, over here. Wait. He's bringing you a microphone.
I don't want you to yell. Of course.
On the call mall system, if we have no power and we use landlines and cell phones, which would be different numbers, there would be different numbers, but
Yes.
Lynn only has our home number. We wouldn't get any
She needs
calls.
to have your cell phone too.
Yeah.
So, because I can actually do a call them all from my cell phone.
Okay.
I can get that out to you from my cell phone, as can Lynn. And then, of course, we have different providers, so if this cell is down, we can use a different cell phone. But we already have the numbers and the access to the call them all system and the database. Yes, sir.
During the power outage about 3 weeks ago, the call them all was very helpful, so thank you for doing that.
We're happy to do it. And we try to do both. We try to do texting and calling because we know some people depend on the landline and then some people on their cell phones. And so we want to have all your numbers so that we can get that information to you. The text will always be shorter. They only have a limited number of characters, so it's not going to be duplicative. The voice, I can go on for about 2 minutes, but the text only has a certain number of characters, so we just put those bullet points in so you just get the basic information. We use Call 'em All almost daily for our team members, so we're very comfortable and accustomed to using Call 'em All, but it's predominantly through text because that's what our team members use. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. He's on his way.
Well, if those special red plugs have a capacity, it's not likely that everyone in Chasen is able to charge their phones.
Well,
And
what we can do-
considering all the other things that are priorities like CPAPs, and how do we prioritize?
Well, for those, you can swap out your phones. You charge yours, and then you plug yours in, and you charge yours, and so forth. We'll also have additional plugs at the front desk. We always do. And then if somebody needs assistance with oxygen, we can bring them over to the health center, for sure. And we have also put people in empty Oak South apartments, those that we have outfitted, because they also have red plugs. So we've been doing this for a long, long time, and typically we have people come to us, so we're very good at it. We're very good at figuring out where to get everybody so their needs can be met. Yes, ma'am.
Greta? Azalea has more than one plug, right?
During the power outage, we checked every single outlet, and every resident in Azalea knows which work and which don't. And some floors have 2 that work, and some only have 1 that work. But they all know where they are, because I gave that out.
Awesome. Anybody else? We didn't think we'd get through this in an hour, but we did. So thank you. So I want to thank Dr. Booth for coordinating with me. We really wanted this to be comprehensive, but not overwhelming to you. Oh, we have another question here, right here.
Instead of people knowing where the emergency outlets are, why don't you just put a red cover on it?
In Oak South, we have those. Yeah, but you're saying Jason and Azalea. Yeah.
Are they in Azalea?
Jason and Azalea?
Yeah.
Not that I know of. You have one. Yeah.
So
and it has a red cover.
Why can't you rewire Chasen for emergency outlets in each apartment?
We have the generator power to the lobby. I know. I understand. So the generator covers all life safety for both of those buildings. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if this was covered or not, but it's something that a lot of people find confusing. The difference between a tornado watch and a tornado warning. A tornado watch means that the conditions are favorable for the development of a tornado. A tornado watch is when one has been seen, a tornado warning is where one has either been seen on the ground or on the radar. That is a tornado warning. So when you have a watch, keep your eye out, but when they say warning, you best be getting into your safe place immediately. Don't try and grab something to take with you. Get in your safe place. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Anybody else? No? Oh, Lynn Kimmel? Uh-oh.
No, I'm trying to save myself back here. All of the numbers that are in the printable resident directory are the numbers that we pull and put in the column all list. So if your numbers are in the printable directory and they are correct, please don't come see me. I have those numbers. If you want, some of you don't like your cell number printed in the directory, you have just a landline in there, then bring me your cell number. These column all numbers are not printed anywhere. No one sees them but me and Mina when we're putting them in and sending out messages, so that they don't go anywhere, nobody sees them. So if there's a number other than what is in the printable directory that you want to be added for emergency notifications, you can come see me. I'll be up here at the piano. Otherwise, I've got you covered. Thanks.
Thank you, Lynn. And Lynn is the one who does the email blast and the column all text. I do the column all voice. So we divide and conquer. So we try to reach out to everybody. Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Booth. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. We will